All right, good morning, guys. Welcome into the live session. I do plan to record this. Hopefully, we're not on here for too long, and the video is not too long, right? So based on what we discussed yesterday on the analysis for the outlook, we did want to see some type of displacement either higher here to confirm us that we can be bullish coming off this daily inefficiency, right? Because of the SMT holding. Do want to point that out. The SMT that we were looking at yesterday. Now, we were around here when I made the video, right? And we wanted to see if this fair value gap was enough for us to hold and push higher, or if we were going to just continue to melt and take out the lows on ES that were relative to each other and come into the unmitigated daily inefficiency, which will be down here. Now, that's not out of the realm of possibility for today, but based on this displacement overnight that we've seen, I would be leaning more towards bullishness than bearishness. Going into the 4 hour, we're displacing pretty nicely. I do see this SMT as a valid SMT now at this point. Based on the structure here, we have these wicks coming in, sweeping all this liquidity and creating this SMT here. And same thing here. We don't really have body closures follow through. So for me, this looks a little bit weak. It could reverse, but I do want to see what we have at open because since we have no news today, we do have a lot of we do have that daily injection of volatility that we could be waiting for. So I do have my eyes on these highs right here. I do think this might be the draw for today, so I am keeping that in mind. This was the SMT prior to the drop, so I want to see this now since we put in a new SMT bullish for us to go ahead and displace higher, and we'll see. I was tape reading this since I was up like around 2:50, 3 a.m. So I was tape reading in the morning. I did take a paper trade, and I'll show you the executions here. This is a very similar trade to the trade we took on Friday that lost, right? So here we have our 5-minute fair value gap. This thing starts moving. And then prior to that, I was around here when I took the trade. Right, I entered here on this fair value gap once it was created. Let's go ahead and fast forward right there. I was filled in and my stop was at the low. Then all we did was create a giant wick on the 5, displace lower into a 5-minute order block into this unmitigated PDA raise here, sweeping these lows. And then I want to see displacement if I have an opportunity for reentry. Sure enough, we do see that clear displacement. So I do enter there. And then I add another contract, I believe, once it gets to this fair value up there. Yep, right there. And then all my target was the relative high to this high, right? Which was this one for me, right there. Which would also solidify the 1 to 2. And that was kind of the idea going into this paper trade, right? It was just a tape read, just something to build confidence. But let's go ahead and see how it plays out. And a little bit of drawdown. And then sure enough, go straight to target right there, right? But yeah, that's just something I thought I'd share here. I was at the gym at this time. So right now we just open 9:30. Expect a big injection of volatility. We don't trade open. At least I don't. I prefer to stay out of this as it could be a little bit uncertain. So I rather see price do its thing. Typically at 9:30 we always manipulate. So if I want to confirm this bias of us going to these highs or continuing to push higher at least, I do want to see us manipulate lower at open, sweeping some type of internal sell side. Right here, let's drop to the 5 on both. Okay, and pay attention to how we are reacting here from this fair value gap on both indices. We've swept this internal liquidity, which on the 1 minute is all this, right? And now we've displaced lower. This is convincing people we're going to continue lower, which we can, maybe perhaps to these lows here, right? So I just want to wait till I see more clear structure before anything. And since today is a no news Monday, I do want to be a little bit more cautious, but not overly fearful, if that makes sense. This is a great example of how we could have taken the previous, even though this is a paper trade, this is almost the exact same trade from Friday. If you guys go back and look at the video that we recapped, the trade we actually took, we get stopped out and then we got an immediate opportunity for re-entry, which looks beautiful. And so I take them and then they both get stopped out. In this scenario, it worked out. So this is why you can't take previous experiences and bring them into the marketplace for the next trading day, right? Because it followed the same exact bias that we were aiming for this high, right? Inside this video right here. So I do like that we are displacing lower. I want to see what level could we possibly go to find some type of a balance, right? So right here we have, or let me go back to the micro, same thing. So I'll be trading this. So right here we have this 1 hour for rally gap. I would prefer to see this hold, right? If we are going to continue to push higher. Cool. And then here it is as well. So this is where we had another SMT for that same exact trade to create more confirmation. So NQ has not reached into this 1 hour, and ES completely has mitigated the whole 1 hour. So something to pay attention to. I want to see how NQ reacts as soon as we get into this 1 hour. If we do, if not, how we react out of here and respect that divergence there. Oh, I'm not even logged in. Dang, so many brokers. Okay, let's go ahead and there we go. Okay, so now NQ has tapped into this 1 hour and ES completely running through it. So I want to see how we react here, right? Now we've technically tapped and swept this internal liquidity here. All this sell side has been swept. So now I want to see how we react here, right? This, I see it as inducement to the downside for us to just continue higher. This would be your inducement for people to want to go in short. They're piling short here. But I want to see, because our bias is bullish, I want to see if we can invert all that, right? And so I'm just going to wait here on the 5 minute now that I kind of see what has happened. So yeah, the purpose of this video would just be more like narrating price, narrating my perspective on price, and sticking to that bias overall and kind of just going through the motions of that. So I'll try to be as informative as possible, but sometimes it might get a little boring because we're just going to be waiting if it takes its sweet time today, but we'll see. So far this morning, we've gotten up, we went to the gym, we knocked out the gym in the morning, had a really good, we kind of did like a full body workout, not really focused since I was a little sore everywhere, but not too sore to the point where I couldn't go to the gym. So we kind of did like a little full body workout. We worked up back, chest, shoulders, legs, calves, everything. I have a bunch of clips. I need to make a video. I didn't get enough time to do it on the Stairmaster. I did do some Stairmaster afterwards for about 35-40 minutes, and then some sauna work for another, I think like just 10 minutes, no more. Then I got home, fed the dogs, made some breakfast real quick, or the first meal of the day. 3 eggs, sourdough bread, cheese, and 2 slices of bacon just to get the day started. A lot of water. Had some creatine this morning with the workout, so a lot of water for that creatine monohydrate. So yeah, let me see what we got over here. Showered, all that good stuff, and now we are in front of the charts. So pretty productive morning already. According to my Apple Watch, which I think it's a little skewed, but according to the Apple Watch, it says we're already at 1,000 calories burned, which is great if that's true. But I think there's a 23 to 30% margin of error for those stats. At least based on what I've read on some of the studies that have been done on those Apple Watches, they're not as accurate as they seem. Even the Garmin and all these expensive like calorie tracking tools and workout tracking tools, they're not as accurate as they seem, right? So just be, I guess, conservative with your eating when you're going based on just the watch calories. All right. So I'm staying on the 5 minute, not on the 1 minute, because on the 1 minute, I'm sure there's like something inducing there that I don't even want to see, because at that point, it's like it's not sticking to my overall plan of just seeing the structure, right? Like some people are taking this for value up on the 1 minute, right? Seeing this as an order block. I want to see clear displacement on the 5 or on the 15, right? Because the 15 is looking like this. We have unmitigated PD arrays here, technically here. And yeah, so I do want to see how it needs to be clear, especially on an unused Monday. Now I have a 15-minute over here on this side of the screen, which you guys can't see, but I just have the 15-minute chart on my left side. I typically have the one on my left side on another monitor. And then usually on my laptop, I would have the 1 hour. But since right now I'm recording the video, I could just flick through the 1 hour here. I already have my levels kind of marked out. I'm looking at this. Some of the things I'm not marking them out on the charts, but I am paying attention to how we react off this order block here on the 1 hour. We completely mitigated this gap on the 1 hour as well on NQ. Notice how ES came down to the order block and NQ failed to come down to the order block. Those are things we want to be paying attention to, right? These divergences that aren't necessarily like an SMT where a low was swept, but a PD array has been met on one indice, and on the other indice we haven't came that low. So therefore, if you get really down to the time frames, technically there has been some level of liquidity sweat. It's just not significant enough for us to, I guess, call it an SMT on the 1 hour time frame or so, right? Technically on the 1 minute, this is your SMT here. And that's, I guess for some people, SMT is confusing. At least for me, at one point it was. When I first learned this concept, it was just hard to grasp the idea that, oh, well, you're pretty much putting SMT all the time, right? So which one is the most meaningful one? Well, just zoom out and look at other PD arrays as well, because sometimes it's not just about the low that gets swept, but PD arrays that have been met on one indice and the other one fails to meet them as well. So it could start creating the narrative and the story you want to be on side with, right? Because we could be completely wrong and we could be bearish on the day, and we're just going to dump through all this low resistance we've been created over the London session and Asia session, and we can go to all these lows, right? That is also a possibility. So we have to be open-minded enough to understand that can happen. Now, what would I expect for us to do if that's going to be the case? I would want to see this 5 minute give us some type of internal structure to then price lower, have lower targets, right? Because I do see these lows here that do attract my attention, right? They're relatively equal. So I would want to see some type of manipulation up into this price and then some 1 minute structure to the downside. And same thing for NQ. NQ did not leave a 5 minute inefficiency that's clear as day as this one. So that's something to note. I wouldn't really consider this a 5 minute inefficiency. It's super small, not significant. And it's been rebalanced by the previous candle. So there was no gap left here, right? So this is why I kind of see this as a suspicious drop, more so as manipulation to then distribute higher. but I don't want to completely throw out the window that we could be bearish, and then this could be the fair value gap that starts trending us lower into these lows, and then ultimately taking all the progress we made right overnight on Sunday, since Sunday's open. So that's my 2 cents as of right now. So yeah, I just keep waiting on the 5. Not really in a rush to drop down to the lower time frames and start trying to predict anything. There's no need. Give yourself time to see the structure, and then from there kind of adjust your plan if needed, or just stick to following the same plan, right? There you go. Yeah, the 1 minute looks crazy. Just notice the 1 minute we are following that bearish structure, right? Displacements, respectiveness, displacement, respectiveness, and so forth, displacement, and continue to respect this. So I just, I want to take that into consideration as well. But my main focus is staying on this higher time frame. For me, higher time frame is 5, 15, 1 hour, 4 hour, and obviously the daily, weekly. If we look at the daily, it is permissible for us to be able to bounce out of here to go to all-time highs if we will be heading in that direction this week. But if we're not, it's also permissible for us to go into this daily inefficiency that has not been mitigated at all. So this is why you can make two cases to the story and you're stuck in between both. So what do you really do? You become more cautious and you allow for market to give you the signals that we're going to be going in one direction or the other. And as of right now, we're not super clear. Why? Because we're stuck in between PD arrays. We're stuck in between some hourly candles, and we're stuck in between this huge displacement we had, right? Friday. Look at this hourly candle. It's insane. We could just be rebalancing this to then drop lower. But it would make perfect sense for us to rebalance this to drop lower only so far and then prices higher when everybody was thinking that this was going to take us lower, right? So there's a million possibilities that can happen, but only, right? Or you can frame, but only one thing's going to happen. And that's your job as an analyst, to be on the right side of that trade. What makes the most sense, right? Does it make more sense for us to come for these lows after this has been proven to be an SMT here to hold, to then push higher? Or does it make sense for us to continue to push higher after we've been supporting some bullish price action? Not incredibly meaningful, but enough for us to see a bounce here. And that's when you run into the issue that you can make a case for both sides. So I think the best thing to do here is wait till we hit 10 a.m. and then see how this 1 hour closes, see if we respect this order block. Now we're both in the order block here. And see if maybe ES sweeps these lows, NQ fails to sweep these lows, right? Because NQ already has put in another SMT there. Low has been swept, ES failed to sweep that low. So some food for thought. I think the hourly is one of the most useful higher time frames because it can give you a nice blend between confirming your bias and using either just order flow to be able to understand where we can possibly go next. About that, came back and somehow my apps opened up. I think just the music app or whatever that was. But yeah, so the hourly chart, we close in about 8 minutes, right? It's looking pretty bearish. So we have a straight dump like this. 32 points. We've taken those lows on ES, right? We have failed to take them on NQ, which is this low. right there. We'll see if Enki can get down there as well. So no real entry for me here. Yeah, nothing really looks enticing for me. So yeah, we wait. I'll pause the video here, and then I'll just edit them together from when I see something more interesting, because we could just be waiting for a little while. If we do plan on going short, I do want to see this 15-minute respected and created right now in about 6 minutes. And yeah, we need to see some structure to the downside. But as of right now, we're just displacing lower. So yeah. All right, guys, we are back. So here's the trade we're in. All right. We're in a short to these lows. Stop at the highs and aim for 1 to 2, which lines up with this sell side, right? It's relative to this one. So that's the idea behind this trade. I'm only in 3 micros on ES. Reason why I took it on ES because ES dug into this 5-minute. Then we had the displacement there. Closure was nice. And yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. Do want to look at NQ? Q tap the 5, and then we start displacing, right? I did take it out ES because ES has these relative lows down here. Right there with the previous low I showed you guys. But I would like to move to break even, or I'll take a partial here at this low. I think that would be a 1-to-1 as well. Yeah, 1-to-1. So we'll see. Let this trade play out. I did miss this trade right here. I just didn't get an entry. It just took off, and I wanted to participate in it if it retraced, but didn't retrace. This would have been a buyout market type of trade. It is what it is. I was looking at this 5-minute here. We had been coming off this order block, and then we created another order block here, which we came back into. On NQ, it looks a lot better. We look at this order block here. Nice, very nice. We respect that order block nicely. And then on NQ, we have the nice setup right there. But I don't get a chance to get into unless I'm buying a market, which I'm not that good at buying a market. I always tend to just put my limit order and just let the trade play out. Now this one, I also like this one here. at 11:05. But there was no setup inside of here. Setup happened afterwards, right? Very nice. Now, if you pay attention to this inverse here, we did respect this right there, right? We inverse it, we come back, and then we just simply push through. I think it was on NQ. On NQ, we did respect it. A little nicer than we did on ES. Yeah, it was. Right here. Notice that ES closes outside of it, and then NQ respects it nicely and then displaces out of there. So we are just consolidating a lot right here at this point, right? But I am expecting us to push lower since we clearly did not push higher here, and we're coming off a 15-minute as well. We created a 15-minute order block bearish, and then we also are coming off a 1 hour. So I'm just looking for a continuation on the move lower to these lows here. Now, if this gets stopped out, I'm done for the day. I'm not even going to give it another shot or anything like that, just because, yeah, it's been moving a little bit, not to my liking, but this is the shot I'm willing to give it. So we'd like to see displacement lower here if we are going to head lower after sweeping these highs internally. Inside this 1 hour, you have your 1 hour fair value gap. You have your order block on the 1 minute as well. Bearish. And the SIBI. I would like to see a change in the state after sweeping this liquidity, right? But we'll see. Just let the trade play out. Initially, we were bullish coming into the day, and we were willing to take this long here on NQ, but we didn't get a fill unless we would have bought out market. And we obviously aren't pushing higher, so we've seen this setup here present itself, nice inverse. The only thing is that we can still price up higher into the inverse technically and then price lower. But if that happens and it takes me out, I'm just not willing to give it another shot. I do like this setup here to see if we can get down into these relative lows, right? This low became relative to this. This would have been considered your engineered sell set. I honestly was about to take a setup, I believe, from here, from this fair value gap here. On this fair value gap here on this inverse, but I did not because I wasn't bearish, right? Let's look at that. So the stop would have to look like this. Short. And stop right there, and then we would have been targeting the lows, which would have been this low, right? And it would have got edged. I like to think that if I was in this, I would have taken a partial, but who knows? I maybe would have held it, and then it would have took us out. Crazy. It would have been a crazy ride. It would have took us out. So some food for thought on that trade there, but we'll see. Yeah. All we can do is just let it play out at this point. We can't try to interfere, move stops or anything. We accept that type of risk and we just let it play out. So that's what we do here. Right? If you become a little emotional, you start moving it to this high and you start just asking for too much. If it's going to stop us out, it is what it is. Again, it can because of this inverse here. We can still dig deeper. And then notice how NQ has not dug into that. Now, the best case scenario would be that NQ digs deeper into that and we create an SMT without taking this high, and then we display slower. But we'll see what happens. I'll just leave it there for you guys. And then the same trade could be placed on NQ. The only reason why I'm putting it on ES because we have the relative lows on ES. And we dug deeper into the 5-minute fair value gap. But a similar trade can be put there. And yes, those lows are an SMT, right? But since we failed to displace higher, right? Let's look at the 15-minute. This was a nice opportunity to go long. We failed to displace higher though. We only inverse one 15-minute, then we reclaim that 15-minute. Now we've come back into it, displaced out of there lower, displacing out of a 15, following the structure of today's day being bearish. I'm just looking for a continuation into these lows, and it makes sense for us to come down here. So that's why I don't mind putting the risk on this and letting it play out. For some people, this could be considered, I guess, a higher risk. For me, I'm just following the trend, and it follows the model. And we have clear lows, and the model is there. So take it, and each trade is individual of each other, right? You don't want to bring in past experiences of, oh, this happened to me last time, so therefore it has to happen this time. So I will buy one here just for the partial sake. And then I just let the rest ride if we can get down into here. Actually, right there. Why this one? Because these are relative. So if we come down to this one, we're likely coming down to this low as well and taking that with us as well. Right. So yeah, if I was participating in this trade, this would have made me, I would have been done for the day, but this would have been mentally draining to see it almost hit your PT and then just completely reverse. That would be tough, right? And then it makes it seem like, okay, now we're going to go lower, and then just completely reverses. There's reasons for that, right? Market needs to mitigate a lot of price that's been unmitigated. It doesn't just continuously dump. We have to come right back up to mitigate price, and that's exactly what we did here. Now, this was our indication to see if we were going to continue higher. This fair value gap should have held. But since it did not hold, that's why it allowed me to adjust and switch my bias and not just aim for some short-term liquidity, which this is pretty close proximity for me. And yeah, so I went from being bullish, incorrect on the day, it seems. And then now we're just displacing lower, right? So we're just almost just trickling upwards to go lower. So we'll see. So we came very close to that first partial target here with these lows. And looks like we're rebalancing. Yeah, I still like this. Now we just need to see a follow through. All right. We have a very small gap here. Now, if this gets inversed and we price above here and close above here, I would say this is cooked. But as of right now, this fair value gap should take us lower, right? Should take us lower to that, at least to the first target. And then we can move our stops to break even to allow for that. Allow for that runner to see if we can get down here into these relative lows. Again, everything is based on the 15-minute and the higher time frame 1 hour. I'm basing it off this order block here on the 15-minute. Just like we based a long here idea that we didn't get an opportunity to enter, this trade did give us an opportunity to enter. So just going based on those metrics and then the narrative we've been building, that if we're not going to go higher, we're likely to price lower. That's what made me get into this trade. And yeah, and there's 5-minute structure to support it. We have our breaker block bearish. We have our inverse. We have 5-minute SIBI. We displace higher. We price out of the 5-minute. And I really like the fact that we left this gap here. I enter once we're in that gap at CE area. And then I go ahead and hold the trade. It does put me in quite a bit of consolidation area period, but I do want to see this trade play out right here, holding this gap to push us lower. I would not want to see this gap inverse. If it is, it's more than likely cooked. But again, I'm not moving my stop. I'm letting the trade just play out. That's what I typically do with all my trades. Because once we start manually intervening with our stops and wanting to move them, then not only does it mess up your mental, but it also just hinders your statistics. So try not to do that. Sometimes we want to because it's like out of protection or out of like our own care. We want to move our stop to here, or maybe just break it out, break even already. Just leave it. It is what it is. Like you have no control once your trade is in the marketplace, right? And I think that was one of the more difficult things I had to struggle with was accepting the control that the marketplace is its own thing. You can't control it. There's nothing you can really do to try to minimize the pain besides, manage yourself correctly. That's going to be the biggest thing you can do. And everything else just up to the marketplace, right? You did your analysis, you've done your back testing, you tested out your strategy. Just let it play out. Do you like how we've reacted here at this 1 minute? But I do want to see a follow through, right? Um, Once these lows get taken, I will move my stop to break even. Why? Because these are relative lows where if we do want to push higher and sweep all this out first before heading lower, I'd just rather not be in front of that, right? But it looks like we're engineering sell side, sell side, sell side. We push higher into an area where we can bounce off of, which is this fair value gap, just to go ahead and run through that sell side here. That would be my interpretation of this, right? We have sell side accumulated here, sell stops here, sell stops here. We make it run down lower. Anybody chasing price getting destroyed here on this candle, and then we would likely come back up just to price lower. Just pay attention on NQ. NQ also has not taken this low, so that's something I was looking at just to ensure that there's no divergence there. But yeah, so still looks solid. We don't have a 1 minute fair value gap on NQ unless you count that little small thing, but I wouldn't count that. This is already small as it is, but I did like how there's a volume imbalance there. And notice how we respect that volume imbalance. So I do like that as well. It's an extra confluence. Volume imbalances are the most flexible PD arrays. They'll typically get printed right through, but I do like to see it when it's there and it's being respected. But yeah. So prior to this, I think I only recorded like 10 minutes maybe or 15 minutes of the initial session. Because then I just simply, I was bullish at open. I wanted to see a manipulation to go higher, but then we just ended up dumping all day, right? There really wasn't anything for me here, so there's no point in recording it. I was just waiting till there's some type of short setup or something, but there was nothing for me here. So yeah. So looking back, zooming out on the 5, all I'm seeing is that we're engineering sell side here, here, here. Now, the worst thing that can happen here is if we come up and sweep this high, come into this inverse, and then have another setup to the downside, and then go for the sell side. Obviously, I would be stopped out by then, but I wouldn't be interested in participating in that. I would want to see price either go now or it'll just stop me out. Or second scenario, NQ price is higher, sweeping out this high internally for ES, and creating a divergence there, and then pricing lower. That would be nice, but that means it would put me in a little bit of drawdown and possibly almost stop me out and then go. But assuming that we're on the right indice, why is it more probable for ES to want to push lower? Because we have these relative lows here and here. That's my thought process, right? And then let me just mark it out so it becomes easier for everyone to see. But what I'm actually looking at, let me take all these drawings off. I'm looking at this. There we have a bearish breaker. It's in blue. High, low, higher high. We displaced through that inverse, left a 5-minute inefficiency here. We retraced back into that 5-minute inefficiency. So if market isn't showing us signs to want to continue higher, right, even though my bias was initially higher, this is confirming that, okay, we can go ahead and switch our bias and play the probabilities to the downside as long as there's clear sell side targets, which is this and this to me are clear sell side targets. And there is obviously the model presenting itself within this section of price. So when that's clear, I'm okay with taking the risk on that trade. Now, if I was just getting in because, I don't think it's going to go higher, right? I think it's just going to go lower, then that would be different. I would be pretty upset if that stops me out. Now, if this stops me out, this is just part of the model, right? And I'll be okay with that. So notice we accumulate, we manipulate higher, and then we distribute. Now we're accumulating again. I'm expecting some manipulation higher and then distribute lower. So this is the opportunity for, if we are going to put in a divergence with NQ, there would be some type of divergence either here or with ES. So do you want to note this divergence here? Right there. Right? Notice how ES made that higher high, that manipulation high inside this consolidation, and then we distributed lower. It's a small AMD model. And then NQ failed to do that. We failed to take this high inside this very small time frame, 1 minute setup. Yeah, that's just me kind of interpreting price in regards to what I see. Okay. Now I want to see what it is we do when we come into this area. Are we going to dig deeper into this area, which obviously would stop us out, or are we going to create an SMT within Q and then displace lower? Now it gets interesting. I'll just leave it on the 1 minute so it's a little bit easier to see. We already know what's going on the 5 minute. We're looking at this 5 minute breaker. We do have possibility for us to sweep this high, but based on the model, we're just going to leave it on this and aim for this to not be retraced too. Let's look at the 2 minute chart. Looks pretty choppy. We also have a very small 2 minute fair value up there that we held. 3 minute chart's probably going to be worse. Yep. And then 5 minute chart is where we got our frame from. Jesus, waking up at 3 a.m. is not it. Tired. It seems that every time we get on a trade and we're doing like a live tape read or live, I guess, showing of the trade, it always is consolidation. The last couple of trades, at least. We've been on this for 21 minutes. That's crazy. Let me check how much time. Yeah, 20 should be 21 minutes. Jesus. Yeah, 28 minutes because I started the video like around here. So yeah, it's just the type of style I guess we get when we do these live sessions. No SMT yet or anything like that. So we're just holding this order block here before the displacement, right? Bring your attention here. That's all I'm noticing. Prior to the displacement lower, the up close candle becomes your bearish order block. You should change the state of delivery. So if we're delivering higher, we should deliver lower. Expire Monday morning. Yeah, pretty long trade. I don't know why we always get these long trades like this. Typically, they're not super long, but it is December, and this type of price action is a little bit slower sometimes, unless you catch something like this, which I really wanted to participate in this long right here. Like it was calling my name. And I thought about buying at market as soon as we closed above here, right? And we created this order block, but I didn't. I wanted to see a retracement into this fair value gap. So I had limits here. The trade would have looked like this. Long, and then stop below the low, and then just targeting the high here, these relative highs. That would have been it, just a 1-to-1. Again, I try to go for 1-to-2, but I wouldn't mind taking this. This is just really, really clean, right? The 5-minute was holding this really nice order block, right? Massive change in the state, and then we had a nice closure here. So very similar idea to what we're basing this short off of. If you look at the 15-minute, we also had this order block here, right? Put in 15-minute, and yes, looked a lot nicer. And then we retraced into that order block, and that's when we found our setup inside of there. So aside from that, that was beautiful. That was a beautiful long. But unfortunately, we didn't buy a market there. I do want to note this SMT now that we put in. So this is nice. This is nice. I would want to see us run lower here. If this 1-minute SMT is going to hold us lower. NQ did put in that SMT pricing us higher. And then ES failed too. It's just a very small 1-minute SMT. I just pay attention to the structure that we have here. So that way, I can pretty much describe what I'm looking at when I'm in the trade. Even though I can't really do nothing about it, it's really important to see how these arrays and price lower or higher depending on what you're aiming for, right? And based on the narrative that we've been explaining, the reasons why we want lower prices again, I'm going to re-explain it for maybe the 15th time, but this down close candle on the 15-minute, creating this order block is very similar to this right here, down close candle being taken by the up close candle on the 15-minute as well. And on the 5 is where you can find your setup to the upside, right? But we can't expect too much either. We can't expect us to go all the way up, right? Because we're extremely bearish on the 1 hour, right? We've taken out any possibility for longs to be in play right now. Even though I was bullish here at open, I was expecting us to manipulate lower, maybe sweep some low and then continue higher into this area, but we didn't. Is that to say that we won't do it for the rest of the week? No, but it's just you have to adjust. So once this happened, I was pretty, letting go of my long bias. I just needed to see some type of confirmation. Does that mean you can't take any more longs? No, this would have been a beautiful long, and I would have took it if we would have got a retracement into that 1 minute. But obviously we didn't, right? And by the time the target was already taken, I am not taking a retracement to the 1 minute because what would have happened? You would have got destroyed. So I'd rather not, right? But then we have nothing else besides this short that presents itself for me. Basing it off the higher time frame,
Order
1
filled.
hour and 15-minute. Okay, so this is that partial. Now we'll go ahead and move this to break even. We're actually going to take, let me see. Yeah, we'll just move to break even. Let me go on top step and do the same. See if we can get lower into that area. So if we get break even on the day, it is what it is. Let me see if I can just cover commissions right there. If we get break even on the day, um, it's gonna suck, but it is what it is, right? And notice how we took not only these lows, and then we also went for the low here. So if we're gonna go for this low, we're likely going for this low as well. Break even, we'll just be done for the day, and yeah, but I wouldn't want to be in participating much in these conditions. I just wanted to get my trade in for the day and be done. And this makes sense for me. I was thinking it was going to be a no trade day, but then this presented itself, which was pretty clear. And I was more neutral biased towards this time of the day. Um, and I had let go of my bullish bias already, so it made sense. Notice how we did put in that SMT, right? That we were looking for on the 1 minute. I was expecting NQ to price higher, maybe taking these highs, but that's good. If we did it here, that's totally fine. It just confirms that, yeah, look at how that SMT, as soon as we put it in, we start displacing lower, right? And SMT is just a divergence between the indices. So if NQ made a higher high, ES failed to make a higher high, and then sure enough, your stock would technically be protected there. But since we already took our partial here, we're not going to go ahead and look for anything, ask for much, right? If we get stopped out, break even, it is what it is. Let's look at the 5 minute. 5 minute, we have this small order block here. This is the only thing I can really see it holding. It really looks like we're just gonna go get stopped out at break even. So only really thing I can see is pushing lower. Other than that, there's no structure on the 1 minute pushing us lower. Yeah. Best thing would have been taking the partial, taking 2 off there, but we let it run. See what happens. Hindsight, of course. And today is also no news, so I'm looking forward more so to trading tomorrow. Today, I just really wanted to get my tape reading in, and then if a trade presented itself, then I'll take it like this. But it was looking like a no trade day type of day. It's crazy. We just dropped, and I really like these lows for B manipulation, but just continued to melt. And there was a ton of 1 minute setups there, I guess, for people that just are chasing the drop, right? You have a fair value up there, fair value up there, inverse there. Yeah, it depends on your trading style. For me, I would not be comfortable taking anything here to try to just aim lower. We did have this sell side here that was a target if we were going to come lower. Obviously, we did come lower to that, but there's no way I take a setup in there for me, at least. Let me look back. Yep, absolutely nothing. So I'm glad we took this. This is solid. Obviously, it's super low leverage since it is a no news Monday, but we'll see if we can get our runners to pay us today. If not, then it is what it is. So technically, if you were going based on the SMT and your entry is still here, I would be able to move my stop at that SMT and feel safe with that SMT. But obviously, we just put it at break even because our first target has already been met. And same thing goes for NQ, right? If you would have entered somewhere along there and you wanted to minimize your risk to the max, I guess you can put it at break even or at the highest SMT. I wouldn't trust this 1 minute SMT just because the 1 minute SMTs aren't as, I guess, as reliable as, like a higher time frame 1 hour SMT, like the one we currently have here. But nonetheless, they still work the same way. It's all fractal. So notice the S&T we had here, the initial one on the 1 minute, we never came back. So technically your stop could have been moved there after that S&T was put in. I know there's people that trade like that. I don't. I try not to move my stop to an S&T high. And then sure enough, you can move it here. And then this would be your trade. But yeah, this looks pretty cooked. Looks like we'll get stopped out there for break even. And then yeah, that's pretty much it. So I did want to just post this video. Sorry for taking so long on these trades. They always seem to be pretty long every time we do like a live trade. But yeah, no news Monday, low leverage, just trying to get some tape reading hours in, and then more than anything, just if the trade presents itself, execute. But and then after we've already moved so many points, I'm not trying to go heavy leverage on anything today. We moved, yeah, 60 handles on ES. That's insane. And then we priced up higher, almost 40 handles. And then we went ahead and, yeah, no, priced up 40 handles, and then we came down
Order
another
filled.
30 handles. And there's the break even on Top Step. So yeah, same thing happened on Top Step. I took the same trade. But yeah, if you guys have any questions or anything or any comments, just feel free to drop them in the DMs or in the comment section. But yeah, look at this SMT being swept. This high is not swept. This is why I wouldn't move my stops to the SMT highs, because the 1 minutes are a little more insignificant than they are. It's just more so for structure purposes. But stop purposes, sometimes they get ran. So I would just stick to your original stop. But we only got met for this target, 1 to 1. And then our runners did not pay us for the 1 to 2. But it is what it is. We'll be back tomorrow and see what opportunities the market offers. Have a good day, guys.